Courtney, I'm so grateful that you came down and you did a lecture on playfulness. I know that you've been working around this concept for quite a while, so this is a concept that is very important and critical to your work and your life work. I wanted to, and I also know that you just released the book, The Grace of Playing, Pedagogies for Leaning into God's New Creation. And I was just curious, how do you think this book, The Grace of Playing, might be useful in youth ministry context?
Sure. Let me say, first of all, that playfulness is not a language that I use in The Grace of Playing, and I was pretty deliberate about that. Playing, I think of as a sort of larger, more complex social experience and practice. So they are related, obviously, since you need to understand playing in order to understand playfulness. But playfulness is more a little bit narrower, and but the joining point is thinking about the ways in which this mode of engaging in reality as if. And I think of playfulness in terms of luxuriating in the continual generation of possibilities. Now, and so I think, which I think is really helpful for helping youth think about their lives and what they are carrying and the enlarging their possibilities. This book, however, I think is helpful in the sense that there are lots of wonderful practices that youth ministers already do. They know experiential learning. They know what works well, and sometimes they go, even in spite of themselves, they might think, wow, the Holy Spirit has really broken in here. And what I would call that is revelatory experiencing. This everyday kind of moment where something just felt right, and Spirit seems to have given us the opportunity to be in relationship in a way that was so life-giving. And so I've chosen to think about that in terms of playing. And the way that this book might help youth workers and leaders think about, so that worked really well. How did that work, and why did that work? And why does it work sometimes but not other times? So instead of sort of waiting for these wonderful breakthrough moments to happen, I wanted to give people tools to think about, pedagogies that help people do this work better. So it's really giving them words and concepts to do better what they already know how to do. And so the tools that I give is to think about what they're doing historically, psychoanalytically, theologically, and aesthetically. And I'll just, as an example of what's in the book, something that I touch on, we touch on in the lecture, is the notion of encouraging young people to engage in playfulness through aesthetic forms. So there are ideas about why that's useful, and in terms of the community, how aesthetics can be rooted in the community in ways that make sense, both culturally, theologically, and historically, that ground young people in the stories and the images and the aesthetics of the church, and helps them play with their own stories in relation to the church's story. And so there are examples in the book that center around sanctuary art. It comes from my mother's own work in Sacramento, that I think youth workers could find some inspiration and think critically about what they already do and how they can replicate those, creating those really key holding environments that help young people be playful and hold lightly.